Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about my friend, someone I can call friend, Joe Martino. I've known Joe for several years now, and he's kind of, I guess he does what I do with G.I.C. He's the guiding force of his team, the Collective Evolution. They started off by creating a documentary called Collective Evolution way back in the day. I got to know him during the second documentary. I guess that was back in 2011, and that was part 2. And then now in part 3, I was happy to spend some time with Joe live with him and Alana when they came here to Roanoke, Virginia, and actually marched with Occupy Roanoke in a Labor Day, I think it was a Labor Day parade. And he interviewed me for the documentary as well. Collective Evolution has been doing wonderful work for many years. They're really kicking butt these days. And if you go to their website, I'm almost envious of the website. It's like, God, it looks great. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Anyway, Joe's a great guy. He really is very, very much in tune and aligned with the idea of the new paradigm, which is why I feel we really work well together. So without further ado, let me welcome Joe Martino from Collective Evolution. Welcome to the Just Bernard Show, Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the lovely introduction there. Appreciate it. And the G.I.C. the site looks great. I don't know, it's a great looking site. I think you guys have grown a lot in the past little while. I've been watching it as you guys have expanded, so that's awesome to see.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And vice versa. It's nice being able to watch our fellow, I don't know if you want to say light worker or new paradigmers work together. I appreciate that. Thank you. So tell us a little bit. Let's start off with Collective Evolution. This is your first time here since we've moved to Revolution Radio. So I don't know how many of the listeners are aware of Collective Evolution or your motivation and your inspiration to create such a wonderful organization. Tell us a little bit about how Collective Evolution itself got started.
Well, Collective Evolution came out of a point where myself and a few others that I was around were kind of going through an experience in life where probably many people who are listening to this show probably went through, where all of a sudden you start to see the world very differently. And as you look into things and as you discover more and more and more, as more veils come off, you start to look elsewhere for who else you can talk to about this, who else you can relate to, where you can find this information. And for us, there was kind of a bit of a spiritual aspect to it that was also kind of very intense at the time, meaning there was a lot of really getting in touch with self, really understanding who we truly are and going beyond a lot of the, the ego, the programming that we operate off of in terms of learned behaviors within our world and cultural behaviors and stuff like that. And as we were going through that, it was well, why don't we put out a resource so that some of these experiences are out there so that other people can relate to it, so that, unlike the experience we were having, maybe we could offer something where it won't be as hard for people to find this information. So Collective Evolution came out of that sort of idea. It was something that came out of, let's put together a resource so people can get in touch and we can connect with more people and we can offer something out there so that others who are going through the same experience can have a resource. And since then, it's kind of expanded into documentaries and a little bit of radio here and there, and we've done events, and I guess just recently was the most recent documentary. So that's been the third one so far. So it's kind of expanded really fast over, I would say, over the past year and a half. It's really just exploded a lot. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the world is changing a lot, and it's changing very quickly.
It certainly is, and I don't know if you get the same vibe that I do, but it's almost as if we're having this awakening process coming to us in chapters, which is great the way that you did the Collective Evolution series, part 1, part 2, part 3. And it seems to me like right now, I'm sure you're feeling the same thing. I'm very focused on solutions. I'm very focused on, okay, we see, we've been griping, we want to change it, now let's do something about it. I'm wondering if that is for you. Do you feel that that is a part of the individual evolutionary process, or is it something that's just happening on the planet as a whole?
I would say a lot of the process is really, I think the way I like to explain it is a lot of what's taking place here is really like it's happening as individuals, but a lot of it is happening really collectively because it's happening in individuals. And like you were mentioning with like the chapters of the awakening that's happening, I think when we look back to like the creation of the first documentary and then the second one, the third one, it's kind of like, the first one came out at a time where it was like really, for us, it was like, really understanding the system and what's happening. And there was a lot of people that were really thinking that way. And you could say there was a big pocket. But then as the second one came out, it was really more of, I guess, along the spiritual line, metaphysical line. It was because a lot of the people that were kind of really, getting into the system and all that sort of stuff were then also expanding into an even deeper aspect of it. And then there was also some people who were just really exploring the spiritual side. And so that kind of covered that whole thing. And then as, the journey keeps going with the evolution of individual people, but also just the planet itself and everybody just kind of really becoming aware, we came up with the third one, which was kind of like, all right, let's tie it together. Let's sort of take it to the next level, but also let's simplify it because there still is a very large portion of the world who is really thinking about this stuff in the back of their mind. They're really feeling that something's not quite right, but because the world is still very rigid in a lot of the way that it functions, there's not a lot in the external world to confirm a lot of the feelings that they have within themselves. So this film was kind of like, here's something to prove both scientifically, through ancient cultures, through spirituality. Here's what's going on, and you can feel okay about it. And I think as things go, I think the speed at which various people wake up, both on an individual level and collectively, because individual affects the whole, I think it's just going to continue to speed up more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah, it seems to be the way it's going. One of the things that I have to say, I was quite surprised, but I was very pleasantly surprised about the third movie, The Shift, is you started off with the 9/11 conspiracy, and I'm like, how many of us started off right there? How many of us started off at the understanding that something wasn't quite right there? I mean, so many of us on this path. That was kind of like the starting point for us, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. What was that the motivation for you? Was that the beginning of your awakening process?
It's certainly, to a degree, it played a role in, especially, I would say, reaffirming a lot of things. There was already a lot of feelings about things. For me, education was a big one that kind of kicked me off into really understanding that something was wrong. But seeing 9/11, exploring 9/11, it was like, okay, this just reaffirmed everything. There's something seriously wrong here. Like, it was one of those things that, it's an orchestrated event that they tried to pull a lot of wool over people's eyes, but at the same time, it acted as a catalyst. And this is why, it's important not to see the so-called elite or the people that are running the world as something separate from us, because truly at the deepest level, they're playing the role that they need to play to help us awaken, right? And it's kind of a big, dance that's happening all at the same time, but it was, including 9/11, especially that early on in the film, was kind of one of those things where it was like, we knew it was a bit of a touchy subject, and it just in the form that you could lose people right away. But we presented it in a way that was very neutral. It didn't take an aggressive position. It didn't touch on anything that was too conspiracy oriented. It was just looking at the facts, looking at the statistics that are made available to the public and everything like that, and just say, look, this is what started a massive movement of people starting to question things, and 9/11 was a huge, huge catalyst for that. And so it was kind of just like, here's the early proof, that very grounded proof that can give people some numbers so they can start to realize, all right, yeah, there are a lot of people involved in this type of movement.
And I'm very happy to hear how you said the idea of their role in the awakening process. I mean, I personally remember that day and saying, okay, this is the beginning of the end. And like a year or two later saying, well, thank God this was the beginning of the end. Now everyone's talking about it, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it was a catalyst. Unfortunately, it was used for a lot of negative things like the Patriot Act and wars and whatnot. But when it comes to the individual, it got us to question the idea of the power elite, for lack of a better term, and the idea of believing everything that we were being told by the media, believing that everything a government says is truth. I feel, for me, like you said, it was a catalyst, and thank goodness for that catalyst. I mean, it's horrible how it happened and what happened after it, but on a grander scale, we have to understand that, like you said, it is a part of the awakening process for the planet, and there is a reason why these horrible orchestrated events did occur. With that being said, Joe, and I don't know if this was touched on in the movie. I know I watched it once, and I'm saving it for later because I want to watch it with everybody today. But did you or have you spoken about a way of forgiving what happened, for the forgiveness aspect of how does our spirit forgive such evil acts perpetrated upon humanity?
It's an interesting question, because it happens to be one of the questions that oftentimes comes up, and it's kind of the I guess it's the one thing that kind of makes people feel like that sort of idea is almost like, if we allow this to happen, then we can just allow anything to happen. But it's kind of one of those things where if you're playing a video game and you're a character in the game, and you're kind of going through the world, and you're this, that, whatever, and various things are happening to you. There's a level of feeling that you have towards something that might happen to your character. Like, let's say you were to get injured, or you were to die, or something like that. You're attached to a degree in how far you've made it in the game and all that sort of stuff, but you're detached in the sense that you're able to move on and realize, all right, yeah, whatever. Wasn't a huge deal. It was something that, hey, I learned, and then the next time I'm going to, make this jump a little differently, or go about this level differently. And in reality, that's kind of how the soul or the spirit sees what we're playing through here in the world that's happening in front of our eyes as we decode it as souls in this human experience. It's kind of like the soul itself isn't really concerned with the same thoughts and the same emotions and the same mind level understandings that we have of our world. The soul doesn't see things as, well, this was right and this was wrong. It sees it as, this all part of the game that we're playing right now, because at a deeper level, we're doing the steps it takes to move ourselves through the game, and to understand ourselves further, and to grow, and to enlighten in a sense. It's very challenging, I think, at times, to see beyond what the mind has described, or has come to understand as bad and good, and what could be painful and what could be treacherous and all that sort of stuff. And it isn't to say that these experiences that are happening, that are treacherous or whatnot, are great experiences that we should just keep having over and over again, and keep wanting. But it's to say that when we truly look at them for what they are, like 9/11, for example, it was an experience that we created together, and the soul itself is able to say, okay, what can we learn from this? What can we take from this? And then ultimately, how can we get to a point where we don't need to continue doing this? Because if we're able to get our lessons out of it, and we're able to get what we need to learn from it, which is the reason why the experience is there to begin with, the moment we kind of get those lessons and really move beyond that, they don't need to happen any longer, because we will have understood that. It's like when you beat level 1 and you go to level 2, you don't have to go back and beat level 1 again, because you've already done it, right? So it's kind of in a similar fashion the way we do things here on the planet, and how there's a detachment to a degree in the soul, from the soul side of things, that says, all right, I get it, let's move on now.
I love this analogy that you're using of the games. I have a question for you then. If in that case, What about those of us, like me sometimes when I'm playing a game, when I get to that level and it's just too damn hard, so I go back to the beginning and do it again?
Yeah, because well, I put it this way: we imagine we're all master video game players at heart, and basically we have the capability. It's just we need to remember that capability, I guess.
I'm going through that right now. I'm playing that new Marvel, I don't know, the Avengers or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is too hard. I'm going back to level one. But and that is a great analogy for the ascension process. That those of us that really haven't learned the lessons, and those of us that haven't learned to have that determination of maybe it's problem solving, maybe it's courage, maybe it's being able to get knocked down and get back up. So many of us just keep repeating the same thing over and over again.
Hmm. Exactly.
So I love the analogy, definitely.
Yeah, and it's the other thing too is sometimes is to remember that even individually, sometimes as we get over, because I imagine this feeling is being had by a lot of people where, because I know I experience it myself, where it's almost like you feel, all right, I'm ready to move on, but it seems like the world is kind of still taking its time, and I think there's a level of sort of peace and acceptance of like, all right, you know what, we are all in this together. And although some of us are moving forward and we do have it, we're ready for certain things, there are still others that are still moving along. And we need to not see them as people holding it up and this, that, whatever, and all they're problematic, but just understand that it's like by what we're able to share with them, what we're able to do, the work that like you and like I are doing and other people who are in this movement, I guess you can call it, of people awakening others. That's important, and it's important to do that. And so we do have collective experiences that we need to have as a whole, which is why we're still experiencing some of the nasty stuff that we're still going through, and we have individual stuff that we need to experience. And so as an individual might be able to move beyond some of the nastier experiences they need to have, sometimes the collective still needs to go through it for their own growth as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I can't help but think of one of my teachers, God, 20 years ago, told me a true shaman, and I know I'm using the word shaman when we're talking about awakening, but I feel like it goes with someone who's ascended or at least awakening, that the shaman keeps his foot on every state of consciousness and can maneuver through them at will, the spiritual, the physical, and the mental, the emotional, the etheric, and the astral. And, for someone like myself or yourself, I noticed that I have to, I don't want to say lower myself, but in order to create harmony, to create unity within myself, within my family, within my friends, I mean, I will do things that my soul would say, no, I don't want to do that. A good example is, I don't know, eat a Twinkie, a Hostess Twinkie or something. But, a nice person gave it to me and I'm like, oh, thank you. It's like, all right, fine, I'll eat it. But, to that extent where everyone is not on the same realm, the same awareness at every moment. But I feel that it's important for all of us to be, I feel it's almost as if it's a cooperation. It's like, okay, well, that's where you are. And this is how much of that I can relate to. This is where I am. This is how much you can relate to, and not get resentful. And I feel that is where the key is, that people, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. My family's driving me crazy. My boyfriend, my girlfriend. Why can't they wake up? And you see that thing with sheeple and wake up people and you idiots. And people get so angry
Hmm.
at the idea that people aren't as awakened as they are.
Yeah,
When in reality, you're only awakened to wherever you are at that moment. It's the way I
exactly.
look at it. It's like, okay, 8 years ago, I was in the chemtrails. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm beyond chemtrails. I'm on to global consciousness, or some people are into 9/11. Some people are into meditation. Some people are into intention and law of attraction, and they're great at it. But
Hmm.
it seems that there seems to be this almost a resentment that we're not all on the same page at the same time. Um, I want to talk about this after the break. Well, we've got 5 more minutes, so maybe we can jump in. I was listening to a host here, and I forgot who it was. Lady Horse, I believe, is a host here, and she was saying how can you imagine if we all woke up at once? What a horrific world it would be. And I was like, well, what does she mean by that? And basically, she started going into detail that, can you imagine the broken psyches, the fear, the horror of everyone seeing all the corruption all at once, of everyone seeing all the injustices all at once, all the hate, all the, all the horrible manipulation that's being played onto us at one time, and that people need to awaken at different points and in different areas of this, what we call the awakening process. What are your feelings of that? The idea that we must awaken in order for the planet not to basically self-destruct, that we must awaken at different times on different levels.
Oh, I think in a logical sense that when you think about it, sure, absolutely, it does make sense because it's when you think about it, I mean, you're right. There's levels of I guess you could say emotional clearing and energetic clearing and all these sorts of things that generally take place, and there's different processes that people go through when they do realize certain things, whether it be anger, sadness, or deep depression at times, when they start to realize that much of their world that they thought they knew actually different. And so if you had everybody going at once, then yeah, it would be challenging. Where would the facilitators be? Where would the people being able to reach out their hand and say, hey, let's help you along the way? It would be challenging, right? Whereas the way it's happening now, you're having chunks of people at a time, and it is accelerating. And I think it's accelerating because there's more people out there and there's able to assist. But at the same time, as more people get added, the overall frequency or the energy that is being emitted by humanity is changing, and it's upgrading in a sense to allow for an easier time for other people to see things. It's like if you're tuned into a specific radio station and you're able to there's one radio station that's really, really fuzzy sort of thing, and that's what you're trying to tune into to awaken. Then what happens is as more and more people start to awaken and support that other radio station, it becomes easier to tune into. And so I think that what's happening is that more and more people are starting to see more clearly the other available ways of living, and they're slowly becoming more aware, and it's just a bit of an easier ride because they feel like more people are on their side, and so I think it is in to a degree it's a smoother process when it does happen in batches. But at the same time, you never know. Tomorrow or the next day or 2 months from now, a year from now, there could be a massive all at once awakening amongst a billion people or something like that, and it could cause some interesting times. It's difficult to say what'll happen.
Yeah, I agree, and I try not to speculate on that, but I do appreciate this incremental awakening that we're happening. I mean, it's true because I think about it. I mean, what if we didn't have Revolution Radio or Collective Evolution or Global Illumination Council to be there for people that were saying, oh, I feel weird, something's happening. I don't know anybody that understands this, and it's amazing the service that people like Revolution Radio, Collective Evolution, and Global Illumination Council provide. And if we didn't do it before them, and we did it, we had no one. We didn't have anybody. I know I didn't. It was tough. That's why I started G.I.C. It was like, oh no, I need to create a community for all of us to work together. Anyway, we're about to go on a break, Joe. When we return, we're going to talk more about the journey to creating a great documentary. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. You're listening to the Just Bernard Show, and we are speaking with Joe Martino of the Collective Evolution. Today we're talking about to Joe about a lot of things, but recently he did release, and the Collective Evolution team did release the documentary The Collective Evolution 3, The Shift. And I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you all get a chance to view it. It is on YouTube, available to everybody for free. As well, we are going to be screening it today. An hour after this broadcast, we'll be screening it today on the GIC.org. And for those of you who watch the movie or are fans of the people in it, myself and Anelia Benz will be doing a live chat with everybody, and Joe, if he has time and or electricity. But just a note, if in case we lose Joe, we will get him back on momentarily. He's having electrical situations going on. You know, it's funny. 2 weeks ago, I had a tree fall on the electric line and cut me off of the show. It's like you can't escape the grid, for lack of a better term, and if you do, you won't be on the radio. But
unless you go off grid and it's all up and functioning.
yes, exactly. And we're going to talk about that because the movie talks about that. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Joe. Let's see. You came here in September of 2012. That was a year and a half ago, and you had started working on the movie even months prior to that. I mean, you really did everything to make this something that you wanted, or that the team wanted to be released when it was at the best it could be, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I just wanted to ask you, because I remember when you first started doing the shift, even before you came here and whatnot, when you were thinking about different ideas of what you were going to put into it, and I'm sure you asked many of your contemporaries, well, should I do this, or who would be good to interview, whatnot, and you ended up going on a tour of North and South America. Listen to me. I bet you wish you did. But of North America. I'm thinking of Canada and the United States.
Yeah.
So you went on a tour of Canada and the United States to really go out and get to meet these people, and experience these people. Tell us a little bit about how this journey started for you, and how was it putting together the movie, going and literally your tour around North America. How did that start for you?
Well, I guess to start kind of from the beginning, when I was right near finishing, I think it was the editing part of CE2, I ended up writing on a piece of paper, because it was the same thing that happened with CE2 when I was finishing CE1. It was kind of like, as soon as it was kind of coming to the end, like literally I went into bed and like all of this information just like rushed into my head, and I just wrote it all down, and boom, there was CE2. It happened in about an hour. It was like, all right, we got that. Let's build off of that. And then finishing up CE2, it was the same sort of thing happened, and a whole bunch of ideas, but it didn't come in as the same way as it did for CE2. It was a little bit different. So I wrote it all down, and I had it there, and I closed that book, and I didn't open that book for about a year or so, year and a bit. And when I opened it, it said right on there, CE3, the shift, and it had like a few details listed out as to what points to cover and this, that, whatever. And I felt out the time, what it felt like going in the world. This was, I think, when was this? This was sometime in late 2011, maybe.
Just after Occupy.
Yeah, just feeling out like what's going on with the world? Where's this film going to take me? Like, what's going on here? Like, and it got to the point where it was like, I don't think the initial ideas are necessarily perfect for right now. And so what ended up happening was there was a lot of thinking into, okay, what is relevant right now? What language should it be in terms of like, how to reach people in a big way? Like, should we go niche-wise or should we go mainstream? All those sorts of things. And it got to the point where I created a timeline, and that timeline basically consisted of a version of CE3 that still didn't end up getting made because there were still changes that it needed to make, and the project kind of had a mind of its own throughout many processes as it kept changing and changing and changing and changing. And if eventually got to the point where it was like, all right, we feel like it's at a good spot. Let's go out and interview people. And we started saying, okay, who are we going to interview? And we started putting together a list of all these people. And then we set up some possibilities, some dates, went out on the road, And that was a great experience because it was not only were you traveling around and seeing people and meeting people who were doing this type of work, but at the same time you'd meet some people along the way and just get in touch with them, and there are people that might have followed the work across the past few years and all that sort of stuff. And so it was nice to kind of get in touch and with people and really go through that journey and see what people are thinking and feeling. And as the trip unfolded, I remember several points feeling like, oh man, this project, I just don't understand. Like, we just interviewed 3 people, we got like 6 more to interview, but like I feel like the whole thing has to change again. It's like we kept going through these changes, and I think at the end of it all, we had designed the questions to ask everybody that we were going to interview, and by the end of all the interviews, the film was going to be changing once again. And it was a matter of, are any of these interviews even going to make sense anymore? And so it was kind of like, whoa, we could have just like, in a sense, right, you could call it this, we just wasted time, right?
No.
We just wasted a whole trip. But what ended up happening was there was a lot taken in all the interviews that was still very useful. And so what we ended up doing was kind of once and for all saying, all right, what is really relevant here, putting it all together, finalizing a style. And I think I remember going through the interviews going, wow, like half this doesn't work anymore, but you know what, there's chunks here, we put it all in. And then I think it was the very maybe last week of editing, I added in like 2 whole parts to the doc that weren't initially written into the film because they needed to come out. So it was like one of those things where the project had a complete mind of its own. It was going to produce whatever it needed to produce along the way, and whatever point it was getting close to being released, it would decide what else needs to go in here. And it happened. And there's certain tidbits that are in there that were never designed to be in there, and it worked out.
Well, I'm very pleased with it. I think you did a great job, and I can't help but and I hope it's okay for me to share this. First of all, let me ask you: did you ask everybody the same questions?
Yeah, for the most part, there was the same questions. There was just some people that they weren't quite versed in the subject, so we didn't ask.
Right. The reason why I'm asking is I'm very curious because, well, first of all, talk about a great change in the direction of the movie. I remember talking to you about 2012, and there's nothing mentioned about 2012 in the film, which is great because it's 2014. It's like, okay, we're way past that now. But I will say I'm very curious to hear what everybody else said about 2012.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing was that we did want to release the film just before 2012. That was kind of the goal.
Right.
Right before, like about a month before, sometime in November, and it didn't want to come out. There was just we got home from the trip, and it was a matter of like, okay, first of all, the site is exploding to the point where we cannot tame this thing. It's just there's so much going on. And it was like, we got this film sitting here, and it's like, what the hell? There's not enough time in the day for any of this stuff. And 2012 is dripping away. There's not much time left. And it's like, okay, accept it. It's just not going to come out. Maybe it's just not ready. We'll see what happens. But, it was kind of one of those things where, 2012 was getting close. And so everybody who was having any sort of thoughts or feelings about it were sharing it, and were very curious to see what would happen as the date neared. And I would say that I think for the most part, everybody said something fairly similar, in that there's not a whole lot in the sense that would happen, like all of a sudden everything would like go upside down or anything like that. Everybody was pretty much on the same page in that there was some form of cosmological process that was taking place, and that in and around that time there would be, certain, whether it be increases of energies or certain alignments or this, that, whatever. And I think for the most part it was all kind of the same thing, along the same lines. So it was interesting that for the most part, when 2012 did go by, there were a few feelings that I think people had throughout maybe the week or two that were surrounded 2012. But, for the most part, it was kind of right online with what most people had said, because it was just going to be one of those things where it would be felt internally, or, certain things would happen, but it wasn't going to be like a crazy, massive, event.
Not like Hollywood would portray it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or for that matter, some of the alternative websites portray it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and actually, it is. If you look at the big picture of what the message is in the film, of the shift, it's actually. I think it's a blessing that it wasn't released before 2012 because the information that is in the film is really right in keeping with where we are. Well, for me, where we are today, in the sense of. Okay, maybe if this was put out before 2012, people would have just been focused on the 2012 aspect of it. Now that you don't have the 2012 stuff in it, it actually is probably going to reach a lot more people, I would think. What are your thoughts on the idea that maybe it was meant to be that way?
Well, I think given the beginning of this project, there probably existed various timelines where it could have came out a year later, it could have came out 6 months after, it could have came out at any point, right? And each point would have offered a different end film and an end product. And I think at the end of the day, if I feel it out for myself and being involved in the project from start to finish, I would say that I'm glad it happened the way it did as well, because there was a lot that was learned along the way. There was certain things, like, don't get me wrong, there was parts of this making this film that were like pulling teeth. It was unbelievable. Other aspects of this film, it was very smooth. Like, it was ridiculous how smooth it was. Almost like, whoa, like you're walking on a cloud. I can't believe this is happening. And it made you question a lot of things. Like, why are certain things really going tooth and nail here? Certain things are really, really, really smooth. It seemed like it was going to be done really fast, and then it just, bam, it all stopped. And it was like, I think in a lot of ways there was in being the big person behind writing a lot of it and doing a lot of it. I think there was a lot of my own personal journey and just what this film had to teach me in the process of letting go and allowing things to be. And I went through a period of even feeling like, we announced this film a little while ago, people are waiting for it, I'm feeling guilty that it hasn't come out, and all this stuff. And I can't tell the full story of what's going on behind the scenes, because we're not just gonna say, hey, all this stuff's going on.
Right.
It's just one of those things of you got to just accept whatever people are feeling or thinking or whatever. And we had people who had provided us a lot of funding to make it happen, and I felt guilty about that, and all this stuff was going on within me, and it was obviously clouding some of the experience through it all. And but at the end of the day, I think it coming out when it did is perfect, because here we are in 2014, and the awareness behind a lot of what's going on in the world is high. There's a lot of continued protests and revolutions and stuff that are happening all over the world, like Ukraine and all that sort of stuff. And what's presented in the film is only going to reassure people of everything that they're thinking right now. Plus, it's going to take them to the next level of really understanding, holy shit, there's some. Oh, sorry, you can't say that. But holy, there is something really big going on here. Right now, and it's this is huge. We're at a big time.
We certainly are. And, as far as timing, I'm grateful for the timing, Joe. The movie came out 5 days after I released my book. I'm like, oh boy, talk about great publicity. All at once. It was like a book and a movie in 1 week. Who could ask for more? But so thank you for that.
No problem. It all works out. That's little soul agreements.
I'm telling you, it was kismet. It really, truly was. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Really? So I was like, oh yeah, this is great. But let me ask you a little bit about some of the interviews that you did. You were able. I don't know if Miriam was your first interview. Was Miriam Delicata your first, or?
Yeah, in terms of
your journey,
stop offs. Yeah, she was. No, wait, she was second actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was second.
So who was your first stop off, and Miriam was your second?
I believe she was second. Yeah, I think we stopped off to see Rob and the Page family first.
Oh, wonderful! That's right. Yeah. That's right. And what did you learn from the Page family?
Awesome guy, absolutely amazing guy. What he's doing there on his land with his family and the stuff that they're creating is really Really nice vibe going on there. Basically, what we learned from him was a lot about his decisions and his feelings behind why he chose the path that he did, and what what's playing out with through it all, and little things he learned along the way. And it's very interesting to sit face to face with someone who has chosen to basically step away from all form of connection to government, and he's fully taken responsibility for who he is, and he's become self-governed, which essentially means he will, as an individual citizen, say, you know what, I'm responsible for my actions, for everything that I do, and I'm not going to run to the government anytime some small little thing happens or something bothers me. I'm going to deal with it head on with whoever is there. And he does everything he does in a peaceful manner. It's not like it's barbaric or anything of that nature. It's very loving. It's very peaceful. Very interesting guy.
If I'm not mistaken, well, I hate to put somebody in a category. He is basically a self-sovereign individual legally. Is that correct?
Yeah, he refers to it as being self-governed. But yes, that is kind of the same thing. He's no longer he no longer has any identity in a corporate sense within the system.
Right. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Amazing. And so from there you went over to Vancouver and you got to talk to Miriam. I've yet to meet her in real life, so you're one step ahead of me. Meanwhile, I've been friends with her forever. How was it being in her presence, and did you enjoy her company? And what was the conversation like?
Oh yeah, that was another great experience too. It was just to get in touch with somebody. Like I had spoken to her on the phone and a little bit here and there beforehand, but to meet her in person and everything, it was really nice because again, she's awesome. She everything she's doing and the I guess where she comes from is what was amazing was when we turned on the camera and she just started talking. It was like wow, like just the way she was coming across, it was something special. Like this, the everything about it. It was just, she seemed like she was just tapped in, and it just offered something I think quite powerful to the film, and even just the way it was delivered. And so it was a really cool experience also too to chat one-on-one with a lot of the stuff that she had experienced through her journey, and being a contactee and all that sort of stuff, and being around where she spends her time and really getting to see that and feel that out. It was nice. It was nice to meet her and to kind of like, be face to face with somebody you only talk to by phone, but it's
right.
Like, here it is,
That's awesome. That's great. And I really did love her segment. Well, I loved everybody's segment. The whole film is actually just wonderful, wonderful interviews and whatnot. One of the, I think when you came here, you had just come from staying in an earthship. Mm-hmm. And I was like, God, that must have been so cool. What can you tell the listeners? First of all, what is an earthship for those of us that may not know what an earthship is? That might be a new term. And what was it like being in an earthship?
Long story short, on the earthship, it's basically a self-sustainable, entirely off-grid home that can be built in absolutely any climate in the world. And it will heat and cool itself. It collects all its own water. It provides all its own electricity, and it grows its own food from within the building. So it's essentially, if you're a family of 4 and you build a home that's, decent size, doesn't have to be crazy big, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. You could live on that land with no utility bills, have all the modern amenities that you want, and your house is going to provide you with a lot of the vegetation you're required to eat. If you're eating, meats, eggs, all that sort of stuff, you can do that in your backyard, and bingo bango, you have all that sort of stuff. And staying in it was quite an interesting experience because we went to the earthship community that kind of started off earthships really in New Mexico. And being there was interesting because there was just a different feeling about things. Everything was just a little bit lighter, a little bit calmer. There wasn't there wasn't power lines everywhere, which was very interesting.
Oh, wow.
But when you go in these houses, you feel like you're still in nature, but you're in shelter. It's an interesting feeling. It's something that is very difficult to relate to in words. You have to really just kind of experience it and feel it for yourself. Because if you think, oh well, if I'm in nature still, maybe it's like I'm in a forest under a canopy of trees, but it's just not the same. It's you're in a place where you feel like it's alive. You feel like it's very calm, very soothing. The sleep I had there was spectacular. Just because I didn't feel like there was electricity running through everything so strong. And we showered, we washed our dishes, we made our food, we used the stove, we did like everything you need to do. You can do, and this was staying in an airship that was actually much older. The advancements that they've made on design and efficiency and all these sorts of things is huge compared to the one that we stayed in, and already it was doing everything we needed it to do. So it was a good experience. I mean, there was even a TV in there. We watched movies, this, that, whatever. Like, it was great. There was so much to experience, and it inspired me. It's been the one thing in the film. I remember when we finished the Toronto screening, people were just lit up about this whole Earthship idea.
Oh yeah.
They loved it. Like the whole place was buzzing about it, and everybody was talking about it. And I've been wanting to try and create one here for a couple of years, and I think it seems like maybe this year is going to be the first year where we're actually going to push to start to create a sustainable community here in Toronto. And we intend to use a lot of the Earthship practices in a learning center that we intend to build on the land. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yes, I did see that you are interested in doing that, and we've got about one more minute. So, is there anywhere that people can I don't know, get more information on building a sustainable community where you are? Is there a link where they can donate or participate or help build it?
Well, we're still getting started with that. I've actually been drafting up a crowdfunding type thing that we're also going to push through to investors and stuff like that. But so it's not quite ready yet. It's very early ideas. But if anybody happens to be listening and they do have land in the Toronto area that they either want to sell or want to donate or anything like that, by all means, it's going to be a part of a great project that's going to involve a lot of the community and really teach sustainability, plus offer the idea is to offer food to a lot of low-income families and stuff like that so that they can have organic food made available to them.
I think that's wonderful, and I love the fact that you're going forward with what you learned during the creation of this project. Anyway, we need to take a short break. I believe we have 56. Yes, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to continue talking to Joe. Joe covers a lot. Collective Evolution 3 has lots of topics, and we'll be right back to discuss them.
And now back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the second half of the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Today we are speaking with a filmmaker and director of the new documentary Collective Evolution 3, The Shift. Joe Martino is spending the 2 hours with us, and I thank you for that, Joe. Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay. I just wanted to point out Joe might lose power for 5 or 10 minutes. So, Joe, when you do, and it comes back on, we can go back to Skype. So we won't use up all your cell phone minutes.
That sounds good. Appreciate it.
Anyway, so we were discussing some of the different topics in the film. And by the way, everybody, the film is available for free. What is the address for the Collective Evolution channel on YouTube, Joe?
Google made their little adjustment to
how the
whole thing works. I'm wondering if it's still just C Evolution TV. I'm actually going to find out right now.
Okay. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and do that. But while you do that, let me just let everybody know. When I go to YouTube and I put in Collective Evolution, it takes me right to their channel, and you can see you can find it there. Oh, Treva found it. YouTube.com/user/CE Evolution TV. Thank you, Treva.
There it is.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I just verified it. It was because they had this whole thing where like, oh, you got to change your name over to like one common name. And
I know they made me change mine to Bernard Alvarez. I wanted to keep it Global Illumination Council, but
yeah,
it's all good.
They're changing it to Collective Evolution, but like I don't understand how it works because yeah.
They're gonna whatever. It's freaking Google.
Yeah.
As long as the film is up there and people know where to find it. But anyway, and also I just want to let everybody know that if you want to watch it with a community and have some chat going on, in about an hour, actually in 2 hours from now, an hour after this broadcast is over, we will be streaming the film on the GIC.org on our GIC TV player. Anelia Benz, who is in the film, and myself will be on live chat. If Joe gets a few minutes to come and say hi, he said he's going to try. But that'll be at 5 p.m., 1 hour after this broadcast. So if you haven't seen it, that'd be a great time to watch it. You can ask some questions. You can ask me questions. You can ask Anelia Benz questions, and maybe Joe if he is able to, and also have the ability to watch it with the community and get into some side discussions about all the different topics that are on there. And there are a lot of topics. Like I said, I would like to point out and thank you, Joe, that you did a wonderful job in presenting everything from conspiracy to metaphysics to spirituality to politics to activism and to creating the solutions. We just talked about the earthships, and I just wanted to, if anything, I just want to do a shout out to our a fellow person in the film was Luke Rakowski. He was very eloquent. I really enjoyed what he had to say. If anything, I, and I got to say this, and I want to ask you because I don't know Luke personally. I know of Luke. He's been on the phone with my friend here when she's here visiting, Courtney Kissed Me, when they were streaming together at Occupy. But I've never had the opportunity to interview him. And I've got to say that I'm very surprised at how much he's even evolved, and that's a great example. And coming from the Alex Jones camp, moving into We Are Change, and then into the Occupy streaming, I find that his work is very eloquent. He speaks very eloquently. What was your experience at Occupy in New York City with Luke Rakowski, and how was it hanging out with him?
It was very interesting because essentially what happened was we met him during the trip the first time I met him, and he was doing all the Occupy stuff. It was busy. There was a lot going on, and we were able to get an interview with him late at night. Right in the Zuccotti Park area. He was tired. Everything was just, was feeling like, oh man, it's just like, it was one of those days, right? And what ended up happening was, he gave the interview. It was a good little interview, but you could tell it wasn't, it's just, he was real tired. Things were going on, this, that, whatever. And he'd been up all night, all day. And I thought to myself afterwards, it's like, this interview is pretty good. There's going to be some usable stuff here, but, I felt like there could have been a lot more that we got out of him. And what ended up happening was very interesting story, but, go back home, some of the footage that we got throughout the journey, actually we lost, meaning what happened was there were some data issues and we just lost some of the footage. But what ended up happening was I was sitting there and we needed an interview, somebody talking about who knew very deeply, something about, the whole Mayan calendar stuff and really understood the concept of world ages and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, we have little tidbits, but we don't have a deep interview about this. And then I'm like, Daniel Pinchbeck would be good for this, but I don't know, we'll see what happens, right? I'll give it a couple days, I'll figure it out. The next day, I get a message in my Facebook inbox from Daniel Pinchbeck. I've never talked to him before. He just messages me out of the blue and says, hey, just, reaching out, just wanted to say, hey, what's up? I've been watching, Collective Evolution, this, that, whatever. And, I thought it would be cool if we could sort of collab in some sort of way. And I was like, oh man, that was so what just happened?
That's awesome.
And, I said, we talked a little bit, and then I said, hey, why don't I come down there and we do an interview, for the film, this, that, whatever. He agreed. I went down there, ended up meeting up with Luke. Luke and him, and we all kind of went and did the interview, and then afterwards hung out with Luke for a little while. We went back to the hotel room, and I said, hey, why don't we do another interview here? And So I popped up the camera and I just started asking him kind of the same questions that we asked, except with a slightly new twist to it because we had changed the doc since we initially talked about it. And I was amazed at just the stuff he was saying and like how it was coming out, and you could tell that he had gone through a lot of personal stuff to make adjustments in his own life over the past year. And he's been posting on Facebook over the past couple of years about just the various like feelings and stuff that he's been having. You can tell he's having more of a conscious awakening and stuff like that. Like like you said, he started out in one side, but he's slowly he's continuing to open up more and more to the metaphysical stuff, the spiritual stuff, all that sort of stuff. And it was amazing to see kind of how much of a transformation had even happened in a year. And the interview we ended up getting was really nice. He, like you said, he said a lot of great stuff. It came along well, and he's a really like approachable guy. He's just really chill. He doesn't have an air to him or anything like that. He's a real deal in terms of being a passionate guy about what he's doing, and he'll do anything in his power to wake people up.
Sounds great. And you guys were actually in Zuccotti Park for a little while, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. We did during the Occupy anniversary. We were there through whatever the events that they had in that other park, and then we went down to Zuccotti and we got to catch a little bit of the I guess the standoff that happened. The police and the some of the protesters. Well, they weren't even protesters, to be honest with you. It was everybody was just kind of hanging out and chatting and passing around some literature, and they were just gathering. That's all it really was. It was just a nice little gathering of people. There was nothing distasteful, nothing violent, nothing like that. It was very chill. And I guess the cops were prepared for the worst. And to be honest, their presence and some of their I don't know, I guess just the way they go about things kind of created some situations that were less favorable, in general. But it wasn't bad. It was nice. It was there was I think one or two little violent spots, but nothing crazy.
Right. Now, and I hope it's okay to say this. You were very happy to get back to Toronto after New York.
I was. Yeah, I was. I'm not a huge fan of New York. Not for any like particular reason like that I hate anything in particular. It's just not a place that I like to. I don't feel comfortable there. It's just the energy there is interesting. I mean, at times it feels nice. There's there's certain qualities to it, and then at other times it's just very busy. It's very expensive. Everything you do, there's just people are always just moving, and so much is happening, and it didn't have the feeling that I was used to. So it was like, all right, I'm getting home, and that's it. I'm staying here for good. I've gone back twice since, and I have to go again at the end of the month. So it keeps calling me.
And that's what you get for saying that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that? What you resist persists.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, if anything, I've been to New York many times, and the reality of it is, it is the capitalistic capital of the world. That's why I feel that's probably why the Occupy Wall Street happened, because people were just so fed up with the energy there that they were like, enough of this. So like you said, there's a reason for everything, but I compared to some of the other places you went, going from an earthship to New York City, there's a big difference there.
Yeah, a bit of a shock.
Energetic, what do you call it? Energetic whiplash.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way. That's why I left Miami. I'm here in Roanoke, and it's calm and pretty, and it's funny now that I'm thinking about it. When you came here, you were like, "What's that noise?" Do you remember that? We were sitting on the front porch, and you're like, "What's that noise?" And there were cicadas. And people, I don't know if people realize that, but these little bugs that make this noise in the South, like all day long.
Yeah.
But it's very soothing to me. To me, it's nature's music. It's very meditative. It gets a little loud sometimes, but every place has a different vibe, and I'm sure the vibe was quite interesting. Now, in Zuccotti Park, you were able to interview one of the occupiers, and I really enjoyed what she had to say. Her name escapes me right now.
Her name was Winnie.
Winnie from Occupy, yeah.
Yeah, she was quite interesting. It was another example of one of those we of course we choose to interview her during the anniversary, and things were so busy, and it was so tough to get the interview because of all the festivities, and she was been up planning and doing all this stuff. So it was like one of those things where it's like, all right, finally we're sitting down, and it was just like, okay, let me get my head straight to do this. All right, here we go, and then but it turned out good. It was nice because she was able to offer her thoughts from a standpoint of Occupy, from a standpoint of being into permaculture and all that sort of stuff, and also having a lot of a spiritual experience herself through her own awakening. It was interesting to see that, regardless of the fact that Occupy can sometimes appear very just about like politics, the system, money, this, that, whatever, 99%. It seems like the organizers or some of the people that were kind of there since some of the early stages are also very into the consciousness aspect of it and really sharing that side of it. So that was a cool experience too. And she was great. She's a very knowledgeable person. She's been around the block with a lot of this stuff, and she has connections to a lot of people. And it gave you an idea of how many people out there, even on the celebrity front, so to speak, are interested in this stuff and who want to support it. And it's just fascinating to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you, the whole idea of, because, that was a part, I guess, what I would label the activism aspect of the film. What is your general take on what's happening right now in the world? In the film, you do show several uprisings or protests and whatnot. What is your take? Where does this all fit? These demonstrations, all this protesting, the march against Monsanto, Occupy, Turkey, Spain, just so many of them happening everywhere. We just recently had the women against patriarchy in Beirut, which I thought was pretty cool. I was like, whoa, crush the patriarchy in Beirut. That was pretty ballsy. Yeah. But where does this all fit in the collective evolution of humanity?
Well, it's kind of like what the film goes out to do is really just tie everything together, and what I think this whole, I guess, the revolutions and a lot of the protesting and the physical side to a lot of what's happening here, I think essentially what it is people are responding in a way that that they know can start to show that, hey, we're saying something about this, we're doing something about this. People don't yet know, and that's not to say that. It's more so. There's various stages and various actions that we do, and some of them are, hey, you know what? Let's get out there and say, here's our support to showing that we want to change something. And if it means that we have to go and make a scene in the streets, we're going to do that, because that's what's going to help people see what's happening, and that's what's going to get the governments to realize, hey, we know something's going on here, and we want some change about it. There is you can always look at this from two sides. You can consciously choose to opt out, and if everybody just did it, we'd have it all done. And there's the energetic factors to it that support certain things on the planet. But at the same time, it's like, are we ready to just go ahead and do that? No, we got to raise a lot of awareness. We have to have people see and feel and realize that, yeah, something is up here and something is going on. So what I think a lot of the protests and revolutions is it's a mixture of utilizing some of the means of an old structure of consciousness, but at the same time, there's a new structure of consciousness that's what's pushing people to even want to start to get out there and doing something about it. It's a transition period of going from one structure of consciousness, one feeling, one world view, or one way of seeing our world into another. And the transition period, it happens differently for everybody. And for some countries, they're getting out in the streets, and it's creating violence, and it's creating all this sort of stuff. But that's mainly because if there's a fight mentality, or if there's a us against them mentality, that's kind of going to be created because that energy is being put out there. And at the same time, the elite of the situation are holding on, and they want to have their last hurrah as well. So they're trying to, I guess, intimidate people with some of the violence and some of the aggression and stuff like that, because it seems like a lot of the aggression and stuff like that it actually stems from the police or the military themselves, and then the protesters kind of defend themselves and respond, and how they respond.
Yeah.
But I do think it's all part of the same awakening. I think that, like I said, there's a new consciousness that's coming onto the planet, and it's you could say it's infecting people. Not to use the negative connotation towards infection, but it's getting in people, and it's making them see things differently and want to do it. And for some people, that's all they know what to do about it. They know, hey, this is what I need to do. Go out there, and that's what they're doing. And I think it's all part of an effective way of everybody doing whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing to make things happen.
Here, I couldn't agree more. It's almost as if, for me, the way I look at it, especially, looking at women in, especially like in the Middle East. We just interviewed Doreen Hassan, the Syrian filmmaker, last week. And I mean, to hear such an empowered voice from a woman from Syria was absolutely amazing. And you can't help but wonder, especially, and I mean this as a whole in our planet, when it comes to activism, that a lot of it is just something that's been underlying our consciousness for a while. Whether it be GMO, whether it be the patriarchy, whether it be the banks, or whatever it may be, that it just hits a bubbling point. And collectively, we seem to be having this call to speak up and say, you know what, I'm sick of this. I don't want this anymore. And I really do feel, and I know people, in the new age, we joke around and say, I joke and say, what you resist persists. But the reality of it is that until we know what we do not want, we can't really start focusing on what we do want. So as we're seeing all of these uprisings all over the planet, we're getting a better picture of where the world is and where we're headed, in the sense of creating. Well, I'm all about creating the new global paradigm. And no, I don't mean the new world order. I mean the new global paradigm by the people, for the people, of saying, I don't agree with inequality. I don't agree with patriarchy. I don't agree with what do we call it? Capitalism that is hurting people. Corporate capitalism, for lack of a better term, or fascism, for that. Is this a part of the process? Is this a part of the consciousness waking up for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think people realizing and stating that they don't agree and that they don't want it. I think that's in realizing what you don't want. It's like we going back to the roles thing. It's like when certain things happen, to some of us it seems insane. To some of us it's what we've accepted as normal. But there comes a point where we do realize that, oh yeah, this doesn't really make sense. We don't want this. But like you said, if we weren't seeing that, if it wasn't being projected and presented for us by making these decisions of, hey, these people aren't as equal as we are, and we go, well, what do you mean? Why would that be? And then the people who don't yet think that will one day start to realize that, because other people are raising awareness about it, or they're kind of making them see. And so that's why I think it's important that things do happen. It's part of going back to the video game analogy, it's part of the going through the various stages or the various levels of realizing what isn't us, or what isn't who we truly are, and then moving beyond that.
Right on. Yeah. Now, Joe, in the movie, you did a great job of animating the whole cycle, universal cycle, galactic cycle. I won't get into details, even though I am curious. I'm like, how did he do that? That was awesome. But you did go deeply into the whole cyclical nature of our universe. And can you tell us a little bit more of that, and maybe kind of hash it out a little bit for our listeners about where we are, and maybe why all of these things are happening?
Yeah. So first off, the animation side of it was actually, there's three of us that were going at it. There was we hired somebody to do that particular one there. Just sent him the concepts, and he put together. It was really, really well done. Really liked a lot of the work that the design people had put their own little tidbits on things. So that was nice. But right now, as the research that I had done to put together a lot of the stuff for this film, which in some regards, especially with the cosmic ray stuff, was absolutely painstaking because there was so much stuff all over the place and like none of it made full sense. You had to like take tidbits from everywhere to like try and put together the story, and it was like it was so confusing, but like it was one of those things that's like you're reading papers after papers after papers, and then eventually you get to the part it's like, all right, this starts to make sense now. I understand what they're saying here. But from what I understand, there's essentially a very long cycle called the precession of the equinox that lasts about 26,000 years, and that cycle had ended in and around 2012, and what happens is if you think about it, every person, every place in the world, just like what we were talking about earlier, when you go to New York and you just don't like the feeling there, or if you go to Toronto and maybe you do like it, or you go to another place and you like the feeling. Everything has its own energy signature, its own experience that it offers. It's essentially it's emanating a frequency, and these are terms that some people get afraid of, but these are verifiable frequencies. We know that everything is energy, and we know that things vibrate differently, and this is all scientific stuff that's understood, and so how do we then apply that to what the film is talking about? Well, essentially, there's various alignments that happen cosmologically. This means that within our galactic, within our galaxy, there's also within our universe, there's also tons of other galaxies, all these sorts of things, and they're all emanating different frequencies. And as you break it down, each planet is also emanating a different frequency, just as each person is emanating a different frequency. The way one could understand it is that a lot of the planets are receiving frequencies from the sun. So the sun is kind of acting as a sort of like an evolution tool. So as it beams down various frequencies or cosmic rays that it sends from its solar flares, it is actually evolving DNA. And again, this is a scientifically verifiable thing. We know that these are actually affecting human consciousness, and it evolves DNA. So what's happening is that after this 26,000 year cycle ended around 2012, you had an alignment of planets that happened in and around that date, that it carried on for a little bit. It may have happened only for a period of time, or there was various things happening with the sun. You basically had a combination of things where we had changed our position in the galaxy in such a way that it was starting to create a new world age or a new experience here on the planet. So essentially, the energies, the frequencies that were going to be coming from space were going to interact with humanity in such a way that it would change the way we see our world here. Now, like in a very simple sense, all of the changes that we're seeing take place on the planet, the revolutions, all these sorts of things, these are a result of all of these cosmological changes that are sometimes difficult to understand because it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of science, a lot of things that are not common language and stuff like that. But if we do look at it deeper, a lot of what's happening in the cosmos and stuff like that is what's affecting a lot of the changes that are taking place. It is also important to note that at a deeper level, when we look back at who we are as souls, who we are basically as spirit, and all this sort of stuff, we're also choosing for this shift, this to happen now because we're basically welcoming on a new experience here. We've been playing this same disconnected old structure of consciousness, old everybody wanting to be greedy and power and all this sort of stuff. Not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. That is changing. We're evolving out of that, and that's happening at a deeper level. And so the cosmos is essentially assisting a lot of that process as we agree to it on the deepest level.
And with that being said, is it fair to say that those of us that are aligning with that particular energy are perhaps feeling this global awakening? I don't want to say quicker, but maybe a little bit easier. It might be a better way to say it.
Yeah, it's like imagine you had like a 3D movie type thing, and it's projecting the images, and you're looking at it without the glasses on to really understand what the images are. So you're looking at the 3D image without the glasses, and it's like, it's kind of blurry. I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. This is it's not quite so clear, but I kind of get the picture. I'm seeing like the basics of it, but I'm not truly understanding. But then you put your hand down, you grab those 3D glasses, you put them on, and all of a sudden, oh, okay, I can really see it clearer now. Now the story I can take in over the next hour and a half and really understand from this movie what I'm trying to get out of it. That's the same analogy that could be used for people who are really embracing and saying, all right, you know what, I'm gonna embrace this stuff that I'm seeing and feeling, and I'm gonna actually explore it. Versus, I'm not gonna explore it. I'm just kind of gonna like sit back, kind of really hold tight to what I'm doing, but I can see this thing happening. I'm not quite sure what it is because I'm not gonna put on the glasses, but I know something's happening. That's kind of the as you embrace it, as you start to realize it, and as you start to accept that, oh yeah, there's something happening here, and you start following the signs. Because I mean, when I say signs, I don't mean vague, like oh, I'm just trying to make connections here, but the clear signs in your life that are telling you, hey, there's something going on here, there's something changing. When you embrace those, things start to change very quickly.
We're going to be taking a break in about 30 seconds, but I wanted to give us a little cliffhanger before we go. And I'm just wondering, what is your personal opinion about life off of this planet?
My personal opinion?
Does it exist or not?
Yes.
Okay. That'll be the cliffhanger because we're going to come back to that in just a second. And then I also want to talk about alternative energy sources, which we do talk about in the film. And we'll be right back after this commercial break. You are listening to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. When we return, we will be speaking with Joe Martino. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show, everybody. You are listening to us live on Revolution Radio here at freedomslips.com. We are speaking with Joe Martino of Collective Evolution about the new film, Collective Evolution 3, The Shift. But this is the last segment of the show. We have the last 25 minutes right now. And I always like to throw a few little curveballs in, if that's okay, Joe.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Right before the break, I asked you if you believed in life off of the planet, and I agree with you. You said yes, and I agree. in the sense that what. Let me put it this way: the way I look at it, we have to be very open-minded to the fact that there is possibly and in my ideas there is life off of the planet, if not on another planet physically, perhaps trans-dimensionally. As I talk about in my book. My book is based on that. My concern is that many of us here on the planet, since we're talking about the evolution of humanity, excuse me, I seem to have a cough stuck there, that there are some people that are very, very, how shall we say, they're stuck on the idea that the aliens are going to come save us. And I can't help but feel that even though perhaps we might be downloading technology and or wisdom or even getting assistance, that perhaps there is something a little bit more malevolent if that were to be the case, because I feel it takes away responsibility from the individual. What is your idea as far as we are the ones here to save the planet versus we're waiting for aliens to come and save the planet?
Well, I think with anything, it's sort of like if you're a child and you're at home and you've come to a situation and something you're trying to put together, build this, that, whatever, and it's a slight challenge and you can't really figure out how to do it, and you suddenly just stop, put it down, you never touch it again, you wait, I'm going to wait till my parents get home because there's no chance I could ever do this. Meanwhile, if you just thought about it for a little bit, you could probably figure it out. I think this is kind of the same sort of thing. That child, if they choose to take the steps of really, all right, I'm gonna try and do this. I'm gonna try and put this together, and I'm gonna give it my best effort because I'm gonna grow a lot from this. I'm gonna learn a lot from it. They're gonna have some interesting things they're gonna get out of that experience. And I think it's very much similar to what we're going through now, except I don't believe that there is a parent that is waiting to come home and do all the work for us. It's kind of one of those things where we should embrace with a little bit of excitement the fact that we're about to be going through, or we are going through a time when so much learning, so much growth, so much expansion can happen. Should we decide to take on a lot of these challenges of facing oneself, of facing the challenges that are on the planet today, whether it be ecological, whether it be cultural, whether it be just even you look at the wars and all the stuff that's going on. There's definitely challenges that exist, and by each one of us taking responsibility within ourselves to make changes and to do what is needed to adjust the way we see things, it not only unfolds a huge journey for your own life, but collectively you start getting in touch with other people that are along that journey with you as well, and together you're creating larger and larger scale change that eventually and is affecting the whole world. And so I think it's one of those things where if we live under the mentality of waiting for somebody to do all the work for us, I think to a degree this comes from the way we go through education, the way our governments treat us, all these sorts of things. We've basically been taught to rely on a figure above us to handle all of the challenging things, and for us to just kind of just do the simple things that come along in life, and just, when every time something really tough comes along, just run away from it, sort of thing. I think we need to grow out of that and start taking responsibility for our own actions. And I think this was one of the very interesting messages that Rob and the Page family had shared when he said what he said in the documentary and through the interview, was that it's about taking responsibility for yourself and who you truly are, and kind of growing up in a sense. And I think the idea that extraterrestrials are going to save us, I don't think could they assist? Could they offer some almost like a neighbor might offer some help? Sure, I could see that happening. There's a vested interest in us going through our own journey and succeeding through it to a degree, as there is for them to go through their own, because we do share a galaxy. We share energetically. We create a perfect soup and all that sort of stuff. And if you were to remove that element, suddenly now the experience isn't quite the same. And at the same time, since we do know, again, through quantum physics and stuff like that we are all connected, we are all one. It's like we have interest in our neighbor starting to awaken to certain things. Feels on a bigger scale kind of have that same feeling towards us, like, it's time for you guys to move on. Let's keep going here, because as you move on, we move on. Because we're all connected. So I think is there going to be absolutely zero assistance? I think there has been assistance, and there will continue to be some, but certainly not to the extent where we could just keep doing what we're doing now, drive ourselves into destruction, and before everything goes kaput, they're going to save it. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, very much so, and I couldn't agree more. I do feel that it's not going to be like, and actually I would hope it's not going to be like, the Americans going in to save, a small country, install a whole new government,
Right.
and but it be the aliens this time. No, I would hope it's not going to be that way. But with that being said, and there is a lot of discussion amongst our community, whether it be consciousness, conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, about global warming, climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I myself, I agree. Yeah, the whole idea of carbon taxing and whatnot, that's a joke. It's not going to fix anything. It is probably some type of elitist way of just making more money. But as well, the reality of it is that, yes, things are changing, whether it be through man-made pollution and or just a cycle of the universe. From what I understand, perhaps it's sun cycles that are changing our climate. Whether it's man-made or natural, something is happening. So where do we find that middle line of saying, okay, well, yeah, there is something going on. Yeah, these people are taking advantage of it to make more money. Where do we need to stand in all of this?
Well, again, that's like you said, there are certainly various factors at play when it comes to our environment, when it comes to the cycles that are taking place, the natural dying off of certain species, but then also the human-induced dying off. You have climate change that's happening as a cycle. You have climate change that's happening, due to the fact that humans are using, I wouldn't say it's so much CO2 based on my research, but more so just the destruction overall of various systems that would take care of the natural cycles. Like, for example, when you destroy all of your tree, your huge forests and all that sort of stuff that play an important role in controlling atmospheres and all that sort of stuff. And when you're doing a lot of stuff that's really messing with the ionosphere too, which then affects the weather patterns and all that sort of stuff. So we're talking about HARP and all those other things. You're really creating a very difficult situation. And in my view, the government taxing the people and trying to blame it on them and forcing them to make decisions to spend more money to basically adopt green ideas is essentially just their way of saying, well, it's your fault. And the reality is that none of the people, not a single person on this planet, needs to be using anything that they're using now that's destroying the planet. It is the governments, it is the shadow governments, the elite, and all these sorts of corporations that are choosing to say, yes, you need to be using fossil fuels, you need to use that. Like they are, in a sense, not to blame in the sense of it's their fault, but they are the ones destroying the planet in the sense that they're not allowing various technologies and all these sorts of solutions to come out into the public that would end a lot of the degradation that we're seeing now. Again, this is a role that they're playing. This is something that we have to wake up to and realize, wait a minute, these people don't really have our best interests at heart. It's time to empower ourselves. It's time to kind of make a stand here and push to having people come together and create more community-based decisions and all these sorts of things. But right now it's kind of part of the role, and I think a lot of what's taking place is certainly something that we can't entirely base or blame on natural cycles, nor could we entirely blame on humans. It's certainly a mixture, and to even know which degree each one is causing is very, very, very difficult to measure.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And Joe, you mentioned, and I wanted to make sure we touch on that before we leave, because I know it's in the film. We touched on some technologies that are being kept out of our grasp. Tell us a little bit of some of the technologies that you talked about in the film and what you learned.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting because free energy or over unity, any sort of type of device that's either using magnets, it's creating over unity through various mechanical means to whether it's a device that's pulling energy from the ether, whatever it might be. There was a big journey that initially started with the creation of hydrogen through water and all that sort of stuff. That was kind of the beginning of the journey of exploring technologies for me, and then it went into free energy and looking what Thrive did and look what Thrive put out and seeing what they were presenting and kind of really realizing there's a lot of missing stuff still here. I don't quite understand if the technologies are available and he sees them there and Foster Gamble does have access to this all this money, why isn't he able to create more of them, and what's going on? There was a lot of holes. I spent a lot of time speaking to all of the big the leaders of all the energy movements, New Energy Movement, the global what's the other one called? The Global Energy Movement. It might be called. There's several of them, and I would speak to these people and I would ask, so what's going on? How are things coming along? What's the status? What do you think of this device? What do you think of that device? And interestingly enough, these movements were all saying, well, there isn't really a device right now that we all feel good about or that is really working or that's really creating something worthwhile. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Here's these inventors all claiming that it's here and that we can build you a prototype and we can meet with you, we can do all this stuff, we can show you that it works. Yet here's these other movements that are saying, it's not quite there yet. A lot of stuff still needs to come along, and there's clearly suppression that's going on with this technology. There's people dying. There's people disappearing. There's all this mess that's happening. And part of it too is there's a debate in the scientific community whether any of this stuff is possible, which in my research, it is absolutely possible. All of this technology is possible. Some of it lies within the current understandings of physics, and some of it, yes, does defy our current understanding of physics. The problem is, to logical scientific minds who are very close-minded because of this fact that they're stuck purely in logic, they're unable to change their mind about things. So when they hear that it's a law of physics, they think that it's absolute. However, the law is only based off of something we understood up to a certain point. Once you start to understand up to a new point, the law is no longer necessarily a law. It is, all right, here's what we understand up to this point now, and it could expand beyond this. And that's the challenge that the scientific community is having now, is in their minds they've arrived at absolutes. And unfortunately, those absolutes are not absolutes. They're just operating within a very limited system of thinking. And so what I think is kind of happening now is watching it, like after the film was released and finally putting it out there, we've had some interesting interactions with some people regarding free energy that we're without saying too much, we're going to try and bring some stuff out within the next year for sure. That is it's basically in an attempt to do what seems to be not happening out there. By that I mean making it very public on a large scale and showing that it's working. So. It's hard to say more at this point, but like we're still kind of exploring that idea. But I would say from what I've started to see that it's a lot closer than we think.
I truly believe it is, and we're seeing so much happening. Whether it be, geez, I mean, just even using vegetable oil cars or water cars, or like you said, the magnets and whatnot. I feel that there is a lot more available. I mean, who knows about Tesla technology? I don't, but I'm sure that there are people out there that might be able to reconstruct it, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of that soon. We're seeing solar that's becoming so much more inexpensive and usable that I feel that it really could be out there much sooner than we think. So the reality of it is just like you said, it's what I don't want to say what we are perpetuating upon ourselves and what we're accepting as a viable energy source.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we'll see some more changes coming very, very soon. We've got about 5 more minutes, Joe. So tell us, first of all, the documentary is out there for free. But people can help to help pay for the expenses of it by purchasing a DVD, which I was excited to see, actually. I have a friend of mine that said, "Is that on DVD form?" So where can we actually find the DVD version of it?
So the DVD version can be found if you go to collective-evolution.com, and then on the top we have a store, and if you click that, it'll lead you to the store. Just a quick note, the DVD is still pre-order only because we're waiting for the final translations of both English and of French and Spanish to come through.
Right on.
Once those are through, they're going to start shipping out. So we already have everything else prepared and ready to go. The printer's ready. It's just a matter of getting those completed and popping that onto the disc, and we're good to go. At that point, too, we're also going to be throwing the translations on YouTube as well, so that it'll be available. And it's going to be more than just those languages. I think we're going to be shooting for about 25 different languages.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, but it's going to start there for now.
That sounds great, Joe. And how much is the DVD going to be? Or is it? Well,
I think it's up for 14 right now.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. Wonderful, wonderful. What's next for Joe Martino and Collective Evolution? Anything on the horizon, or are we just kind of gliding and waiting for our intuition to give us a shove?
It's I like to say that, I'm going to relax and just let intuition, take me through the next level whenever that is. But unfortunately, as soon as the doc was pretty much released, a whole bunch of new ideas start coming to the forefront, and you really have no choice to explore it. But we're actually kind of in the process of doing a few just like in-house things right now, just reorganizing. We're looking to get a new office space, the one that we're kind of outgrowing, the one we're in now. So we're going to be doing that, and then moving into expanding the writers to the site and all that sort of stuff. We really want to be getting the site to a little bit of a new level in the sense of we have some ideas that we want to push out. So we're going to be working on that. And then we also want to do some short videos, sort of short documentaries type stuff. I mentioned a little bit about free energy stuff, that those are projects that are up and coming. And then also, I hate to say it, but it's kind of probably going to happen, but another feature film will probably come sometime soon. What I mean by that is we're going to continue to explore the idea. I'm not saying that it's going to be out anytime soon, but there's already been quite a few notes taken for that. But certain things need to fall into place prior to that even being a project we want to do. So we'll see what happens there. And also, I'm very, very pushed from inside to really want to explore this sustainable community thing. Can't get it out of my mind. It keeps coming up. I know it's going to work out in some way, shape, or form, given the amount that it keeps coming forward. But we basically want to create something in Toronto or in the Toronto area where, we have some land. We are able to put on a learning center. That learning center will be able to teach a number of things out of there to people. It'll all be very, very accessible to people. And we also want to then create some living structures on there, gardens, a year-round garden, and be able to offer not only examples of how to do a lot of these things in your own life, so that people can start growing their own food, they can start learning how to do it year round in different climates, but then also offering some of the food that's grown on our land to people that are have a difficult time getting organic produce and that sort of stuff. Just so that it's helping the community, really bring it. We want it to be a space that helps the community as much as possible, and that really it gets as much action done. We don't want to just create some all right, we have our own community and we're just going to live on it and screw you guys. It's like, no, we want people to really gain from this and to learn as much as possible and to get involved as much as possible.
That sounds wonderful, and I think that's a great direction to be going in. It's a direction that many of us would hopefully strive for. I mean, I don't know what the new paradigm looks like, but I believe that what you're talking about is going to be a part of that. And we really, for me, I mean, I would like to learn how to garden correctly. I would like to learn how to feed myself correctly. I would like to learn how to generate electricity individually. So it's not a matter of, like, for me, yes, I want to do that, but I don't know how to do it. So to have something like that would be fantastic, and that's a great way and a great direction to go to. I have to joke a little bit here. You said that this is the end of the Collective Evolution series. Is that true, or?
Yes.
Okay.
There will be the Collective Evolution series. Any future films will be, it will reestablish itself.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because we may not necessarily go feature length. It could also be short. But if I'll just say, if two things play out kind of simultaneously, which it's looking like they might, there will be no choice but to make another feature film. So.
Well, I'm glad, and you do such a great job. I got to tell you, the film is wonderful. I enjoyed the first two. I love the third, and for me, they each one got better and better and better and better. And I know I'm not saying that just because I'm in it for 5 minutes, but because in fact, the whole film is fantastic. And it was funny because I was when you premiered the film, it came out a little later than I expected, and I was kind of in a hurry that day, And I'm like, okay, well, my roommate wanted to go somewhere or do something. I forgot what it was. I'm like, all right, we'll just watch the part until I'm on, and then we'll leave after that. And we couldn't stop watching it. I was like, oh no, we got to watch the whole thing now. We got to watch the whole thing. So it was awesome. The whole film is fantastic. I loved every minute of it, and I look forward to seeing what other work you have to put out. I want everybody to know that you can find more of Joe's work at collective-evolution.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm very happy to say your electricity didn't go off.
It didn't. I was very surprised.
Very good. We've got a few more seconds left. I want to thank you very, very much, Joe, for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you in a little while if you're not too busy.
Yeah, for sure. I always like catching up with you. It's always an enjoyable show. It always goes by so fast. So much stuff to talk about. We can relate to things, and I appreciate what you're doing as well. So it's awesome to kind of collaborate and bring things together.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, we are going to be streaming the film in 1 hour at thegic.org, and you can chat with me and Anelia Benz live, and hopefully Joe will come in and say hello if he's got a moment. But make sure to join us there at thegic.org in just 1 hour. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. We love you. Next week, we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.